Hello everyone, this is Charlotte and this is a podcast called Chatting in Cars. It's where I talk about random topics while I drive to work. Not that anyone's listening, but that's okay because we've all got lives and mine sucks. But, so, it is officially the first podcast back at work after a 2-week stint, so I'm quite happy with that. I managed to eat a lot and sleep. I was very stoked. Right, there is a disclaimer at the start of my podcast because I talk about random topics which are often very sensitive. I don't expect people to take my point of views as gospel. These are obviously my interpretations of my experiences. Everybody's different, everybody's got their own unique life path. So if I say something that hurts your feelings, that's okay. We're allowed to say things that hurt people's feelings, but at the same time, understand that people are coming from different angles in life. Not everyone's going to have the same viewpoint. So you take everything with a grain of salt. We can't take anything really personally, can we? I also swear a lot, particularly if I'm ranting about shit that makes me angry. Sometimes I just say swear words because I like them. It's a colourful language. We must use all elements of it. Right, the topic for today is generalised social anxiety. Now, I have been diagnosed with that. That was one of the fun outcomes of having a semi-nervous breakdown, 2018. If you've listened to the other podcasts I've done, you'll know what led up to that. Shit me. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff that went happen. Mainly it was just, it was a divorce. It started with a divorce. As you do with any other breakup, you know, you feel sad, but you don't know why. So it was one of those cases where I just couldn't stop crying. And I'm sitting there thinking, wow, this is a bad breakup. This is a really bad breakup. Why can I not stop crying? So I ended up having a mental health plan with my doctor. She set me up for a psych plan. She also gave me diazepam or whatever that is. I think I took one and I went, this is shit, I want to try something else. So I went into a mental health plan, I went to a women's clinic and it all snowballed from there. I will do a podcast about what the experiences that was at one point because it's interesting for anyone who has no access to psych help or anything like that. But I do have generalised social anxiety. That was one of the outcomes of it besides autism, PTSD. I had depression at the time. I think that's gone away, I don't know. And mild OCD. So yeah, trichotillomania as well, just for shits and giggles, which is a sub part of generalised anxiety. Now, generalised anxiety, it comes up as different behaviours and traits. It's really weird. I mean, anyone who's got it or anxiety in general knows that on the inside it just feels like ongoing, just screaming. To sum it up, it's internal screaming and you can't stop it. It makes your skin sharp feeling in autistic terms because, you know, I say that because, you know, I've been told that autistic people feel it slightly different than, you know, non-autistic people. Whereas ours is more sensory based, we can put senses to it, different feelings to feelings. You know, like, how can I give you an example? All right, I can smell the inside of carrots. Does that make sense? That blew my ex-husband's mind. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's like, I can smell the inside of carrots. What the fuck? What? Can you feel the inside of your fingertips? Because I can. He's like, what the fuck are you talking about? I think he just thought I was retarded. So it's like, no, seriously. We've got an extension of our sensory issues. Everything's sort of heightened. So what you're feeling is just, oh, my hands are cold. We're feeling like, this is intensely sharp and pointy and I hate this. So when we feel anything like, oh, that's the thing as well, because it's like a paradox. It's like I didn't understand I had depression, for example. I couldn't register. I know I felt bad, but under that umbrella of bad comes so many different subtypes of bad. So depression is one. There are others. My autistic brain right now is going, what the fuck? But no, depression was one. Guilt apparently is one. Although I have trouble putting a feeling to that. Some people can go, oh, that's what that feels like. What helps me is if I'm given a metaphor or an experience that I've already gone through, and I can say, okay, I felt that way. I read that feeling when that happened, so that must be that. So I need someone to externally confirm what it should feel like. That's one of the downsides of autism, I suppose, if there is any. But at the same time, Generalized anxiety, I've been living with it for fucking decades. I just didn't recognize it. And it came out in various ways, such as generally to hiding. Part of that is selective mutism as well. How do we cope with not being able to speak? We don't speak. we have trouble with social interactions. My stutter at the moment, when I'm really, really tired or really, really excited, is a result of selective mutism, which I've had since I was a kid. I didn't recognize it at the time because my parents were just saying, oh, she's just quiet. And they actually reinforced it because their parental methods of behavior management were, hit until it's quiet. So, well, that was my mom. But, I'll do one on child abuse and parenting, a podcast on that later. But it was just a complete clusterfuck of parenting, nature and nurture working together to, compound the situation where I just know social skills and have trouble recognizing my own emotions. That's a weird paradox to create. Because then you have like the hardest time trying to unparent yourself into some kind of socialized set of behaviors where you can relate to other people and develop empathy and things like that. That was the hardest part. My parents wanted me quiet and compliant. I already had selective mutism, and I was already compliant because basically lived in fear for the first 12 years of my life, and then I was just angry and I didn't want to be around anyone after that. So I was already going to be quiet and withdrawn and away from people. I have severe trust issues because of that as well, so I also isolate away from people. I don't like people touching me, things like that. That's trauma-based because of the way my parents raised me for the first 20 years of my life, and then mixed with a shitload of bad experiences on top of that came after that. So my trauma has been extensive and ongoing. It's not just PTSD, it's CPTSD, where everything else is sort of added on. The underlying main problem there is the autism, because that's genetic, that's a structural issue in my brain. I have a predisposition to act particular ways. If the needs of those ways aren't being met, not that I'm saying anyone should make allowances, I can always adapt to circumstances. I don't mind doing that because I like to adapt. I think if you're going to survive, you should try to adapt. Stop trying to expect people to make way for you. It's nice if they do, but at the same time, don't just demand it because I'm me. I already had a predisposition for certain ways, like audible issues, loud noises and stuff like that. Touch is highly sensitive for me, which is a bad thing in some ways and a really, really good thing in some ways, as my ex-husband's sex life found out. It sucks to be him now. But it was made worse by violence and abuse and loud shouting constantly, and these circumstances which led to me having a more nervous disposition growing up, where I was also withdrawn and isolated, or I had trouble making friends. All my friends, like my best friend Andrew, I've known since year 2, and that was because we sort of latched onto each other in the 2nd grade and just stuck with each other, ever since. And I've still got him on Facebook, and I'm now 38, so it's been a while. I don't know if we're best friends still. I'm sure he's got better friends with more in common, but at the same time, we still associate with each other. I've got about 3 or 4 or 5 friends that I associate with in the entire world, and I just don't go out of my way to try and make friends. I don't enjoy social interactions that much. I don't find it relaxing. Some people love doing it. I find it intensely horrible feeling. I always feel like I'm going to fuck up. But I've been told that's everyone. Everyone feels it, yes. But when you're on the spectrum, it's more of a larger feeling because you're trying to understand what's going on at the same time, which leads to all kinds of horrible experiences if you're trying to, form friendships in an environment that isn't really an honest, clean environment to begin with. Like some social groups I tried to hang around with, it was fucked to begin with. I don't even know why I tried to join in and make friends in that group. It didn't make sense. You'll know the one I'm talking about if you listen to the other podcast. Clearly I didn't fit, and in the end it was a good thing because I I didn't want to fit. So, fuck that. But the hard part is trying to find, and muster the strength to try and want to interact with these people, to test the waters, to see if these people have anything in common with you, if you can relate to them or anything like that. That's the tricky part with generalized anxiety. To be honest, I'm quite happy staying at home. I would rather be at home sitting there playing Stardew Valley and eating, watching movies on Netflix and stuff like that. The intense stress that comes with people, and you can tell from my stutter kicking in now that I'm starting, it's the thought of it is a bit too overwhelming. I love one of my kids from work called Leo. He's got a stutter as well, and you can tell when he's trying to force it out. He's like, I know what you're feeling, man. He's like, I know you want to say something to me. He's like the best kid. He's only year 3, but he's got a stutter too, and I'm like, he's one of my favorites because I can relate to what he's going through when he's trying to talk. It's some intense stuff that you have to, work through just to get the words out. I've also got a selective mute kid called Scarlet. It's either Silver or Scarlet. And it's good because I've developed a relationship with her as well, where she will just openly talk. And clearly something's clicked there where she feels comfortable enough to do it because she doesn't do it with the other teachers. And I'm like, yes, one for the team. But she'll just go on. She's got a very soft voice. Anyway, she doesn't ramble like I do. But, that's the tricky part, is trying to get past your own sort of prison of the mind, your own tarot devil's card, where you're convinced that if you fuck up, it'll be the end of the world, or, if you won't be included. The thing to remember is if you don't get included, fuck it, who cares? Who cares? You'll find another group. There's tons of other groups. I was afraid for ages that I would look like an absolute idiot. When I was a kid growing up, I stuck with the weird kids, which was my comfort zone. I loved the weird kids. You learn so much more from weird kids than you do popular kids. Popular kids all do the same shit and they're boring. The weird kids are the ones that are thinking outside the box and will tell you about, things like anime and stuff like that growing up, when all the popular kids are doing fucking home and away shit. And you're like, this is boring. Where's the weird shit at? Which led me to sort of seek out odd groups and odd, forms of anomalies in people. I love looking for weird people because you're looking for your own clan, aren't you? I don't know if I'll ever find it. I find, dribs of drabs of odd people like me, and you sit there and go, oh. Like I've always had a soft spot for anyone who's from the UK, because I know that we've got that sort of similar background, and I'm like, yes, my people made it. So you hear that English accent, any region of England or Scotland or something like that, you hear that accent and you go, ooh, it's one of mine. And I get excited, and they're already instantly in because they're the anomaly in the population with thick Australian accents. You're like, all right, I'm taking the anomaly and I want that one. I love the weird ones. I'm not saying they're weird, I'm just saying they're different, and I like different. But that could be just a cultural thing, I don't know. I've been immersed in this culture this long that anything different, you kind of go, ooh, that's, interesting. It's not the same. Whereas it might be a different question in a different culture, obviously, because different can be scary. If you listen to my podcast I did on Durkheim's othering, sometimes different scares the fuck out of people. If you can't understand what's going on, there's a threat there. If you look at it negative, if you can't stand what's going on in a positive way, it's a learning experience, isn't it? Well, to say that everything is a learning experience in one way or another, whether it's a negative or a positive one, but you've got to look at it critically. Don't just take it at face value. I say a lot. I've just gone through all my podcast transcripts because I'm copying and pasting them and doing stuff with them. And I've just, each time I'm going through, I'm doing the replacing the word with a space. There's a lot of spaces in my transcripts. I say a lot. That's part of it as well. That's coping with trying to get my brain working. What else can I say about social anxiety? It's horrible. Like the last time I tried to ask someone out, I texted them. I didn't even call them on the phone. I hate calling people on the phone. I hate them. I hate talking on the phone. There's something wrong with it. I swear to God. Do you remember the time before texting where people would just pick up the fucking phone and just, it's normal? Even for things like ordering a pizza and stuff like that. And now it's like, why are we talking on the phone? I hate it, just text. But I had such an anxiety attack about just doing that, just texting. It was the worst thing. And in the end, he had a girlfriend anyway, so I'm like, all right, that's cool. I felt more relaxed after I figured out, after he said that. And I'm like, oh, phew, okay. Okay, all right, have a good, what was it? I think I texted back. He asked me how I was after that. I'm sitting going, I've just created this really weird situation where I've just asked you out. You've told me you've got a girlfriend. And now you're all like, how are you going, by the way? I'm like, I'm not carrying this conversation on, dude. I just ripped myself inside out. I'm gonna say, Happy New Year and keep going. Sorry, guy. I can't do this. I can't carry on a conversation after I've done something so personal. I just, Happy New Year. Hope you have a good one. Bye. Ghost. I don't know how people can do that. It's like, you're just acting like what I did just didn't happen. See, that's part of the generalized anxiety. We put so much importance on these acts, whereas some people can just sort of brush them aside like it's a whim. It's like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's like, It's like, I'm sitting there having a damn near panic attack before I even put, finger to button on the text. And they just brush it aside like, You're like, maybe I'm putting too much emphasis on this act. It's the weirdest thing. Everything gets blown up proportion. But yeah, that was a weird experience. Damn near panic attack before that, though. I don't know why. Don't know. Maybe it wasn't meant to happen. Maybe I wasn't meant to ask him out. That's the universe stepping in and saying, this one's not it. I don't know. From my generalized anxiety, I've got symptoms like trichotillomania, which is skin cutting picking, which is not very attractive, and my ex-husband used to give me a lot of shit about. Because I'd be sitting there, I'd be thinking and overthinking and cutting myself, essentially. And he would, he'd say it looks gross and stuff like that. He wasn't really supportive. I don't think he quite understood what was going on there. I already had that predisposition before I even met him. He met me from 17 onwards, so what he saw was a 17-year-old girl that was pretty bubbly and happy, but was also concealing a lot of fucked up stuff. And the only reason that I was able to, I didn't even talk to him, to be honest. The way I picked him up was, this is a weird way, besides trying to, I tried to pick him up. I have no verbal skills. That I knew at the time. I was 17. I hung out with the weird people. I got along with those people because there was no pressure to perform. There was no pressure to look cool or to fit in, really. We just sort of all hung out near the flagpole and we just talked shit. That was a godsend, I think, growing up through high school, because if there had been any kind of pressure to, look a certain way, American schools have got all that, these little subgroups of mods or whatever they are. Shows my age. Mods? What the fuck are mods? Oh, it's the 1960s. No, but they all had that subgroup and you have to belong to this group and nobody wants to associate with anyone else because you've got your own group and fuck everyone else sort of thing. Or either that or that's just like what the media portrays social groups as in America. I don't know. The cliques, Everyone in Australia just sort of melds. There's sporty people, there's popular people, and there's the weird people. Even the nerds hang out with the weird people. We don't care, we'll take anyone. We like them. Except the popular people who are dicks. As long as you're not a dick, you can fit in, we don't mind. It's a mishmash of people. There was no pressure to be a certain way unless you're trying to join in with the so-called popular people, and the popular people wanted to drink and smoke and party at each other's houses and wag school and shit like that, and I just wasn't that way inclined, and I liked being at school because it was safer than being at home, and that's why I felt, better at school than at home. I didn't like going home, to be honest. Some kids got anxiety about going to school. It was like, oh, the pressure of going to school. It's like, I love school, man. Nobody's hitting me. I can hang out with my friends. No one's screaming. The teachers always being nice. It was fucking awesome. I didn't turn up with lunch a lot of times, and if you don't turn up with lunch, they give you food. It's like, this is awesome. It was just brilliant. It was a really nice, safe environment for me. The teachers were better than my parents most days. I remember spending a lot of the time crying in the school toilets because of what my parents had done to me before I even walked in the school. That was the blessing for me. So when I went into teaching, it was to be able to provide kids with that kind of environment. I'm sorry, I've got some 8-year-old up my ass for some reason in a Saab. I might let him collide with something. I'm just gonna get out of your way. Oh no, he's turning off. What is your deal? Fucking no spatial awareness. He's gonna, yeah, anyway. Weird, people can't drive in this country. I don't know if that's a common factor. All right, so back to how I picked up my boyfriend. Now I have no verbal skills. I still have no verbal skills. Everything's pushed out. I'm nearly 40 and even talking to random people I have to push. It's a uniform and a mask I've put on and I've learned, because I'm still screaming on the inside, but at the same time I know that I have to do this in order to get somewhere. I hate doing it, but I'm way more comfortable on my own, or at least with one other person. That's it. One other person that I can trust, and that's it. I'm cool with that. I used to hang out with a girl called Danielle. She was my close friend at the time. She obviously was my age. We would just link arms and walk around the school, because we'd just go for a wander and start bitching and chatting about random stuff. She was weird, I was weird, it worked. But at the same time, my ex-husband used to hang out in a group of about 3 or 4 guys, and they would just stand near the flagpole. And the way I picked up my boyfriend was, and this is pretty fucking cringe, I just sat at his feet in a weird way, because they were standing around, hanging around. Some were sitting on the floor in a circle, some were standing, and I just sat at his feet and I said, right, I don't have words, but this is how I'm claiming it. And it's cringe as shit, because I have no, in my aspy mind, I'm sitting there going, this'll work. He knows what I mean. It's all right. And most people will go, hey, do you want to go out with me? Which is why I'm so adamant now. If anyone asks me out, it's like, I need to hear those words so I know what the fuck's happening. I was pretty high school. It's like, you want to go out with me? But I was underdeveloped. I'm still underdeveloped. I know I am. I'm retarded in that way. My language of trying to communicate people was different, very different at the time. And I didn't have the balls to verbalize it, nor the ability. So I just claimed him by sitting at his feet. And there were other people sitting down as well, so I'm not completely retarded. But I sat in front of him, and yeah. It's like, this is my one. And it's terrible. And I don't think he got the point anyway. I think he's like, there's a fucking girl at my feet and I don't understand it. I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. I am retarded. I get that. It's cringe. But that was my non-verbal thing to me. It's like, okay, all right, I've chosen this one. Later on, I showed how much of an actual spaz I am, because we were in Blockbuster. You remember when they had Blockbusters, man? I'm that fucking old. And he was with his brother. No, actually he was with his friend on the other side of one of those huge Blockbuster bookshelf things. And I went to go say hi to him, ended up knocking over like 5 videos or something. Embarrassing the shit out of myself. Yeah, I don't think he realized I liked him at that point either. But I ended up nearly taking out a shelf in the middle of a Blockbuster just to try and get his attention. So that's an attractive trait, ladies. Try that one. I'm sure it'll guarantee you a husband. Yeah, I got no fucking social skills. It would have been easier if I just said, hey, do you like me? Or can I like you? But things are never that straightforward, is it? It's fucking cringe. So it's a lifetime of horrible internal screaming and cringe as well. I got no social skills. And I'm a dork. I like it. After that, I got adopted by him. I don't know how, but you know what it's like in the schoolyard. Gossip goes around. It's like, oh, he likes you. It's like, what? What do you mean? He actually likes me? Little 16, 17-year-old girls. He likes you. He's coming. He's going to ask you out today. I'm like, what? So I was pretty stoked about that. And that's how I picked up the guy that, I'd spend the next 16 years with. So it kind of worked for all its dorkiness. Smooth. Of course, now everybody's doomed not to be able to do it because Blockbuster doesn't exist anymore. So we're all going to die single. I'm sorry. You can't be as smooth as me, damn it. No, I'm so fucking bad. I got no balls. I don't. I can lead an army of children across a fucking schoolyard platform, whatever you want me to do. I can get them to do whatever you want. Get them to fucking jump on command and shit like that. But when it comes to anything like asking boys out, or men out is probably worse, because now you're like, oh god, that one actually looks like a man, I don't know what I'm doing. I really don't. I know I'm fully grown. It just seems more important asking a man out than it does a boy out, doesn't it? Because maybe they'll have bigger expectations of you. And it's weird as well when you can identify a boy from a man, because you're like, that's a boy. Oh my god, that one's a man. Should we ask him out? I don't know, I'm gonna die. If I do that, I will die. And then you revert to being this giggling 16-year-old on the inside again. And you're like, fuck, I have not grown at all. I'm nearly 40, I haven't figured this out. Why have I not figured this out? Because it doesn't come up often enough. Shit! And the last guy you asked out, you were 16 at the time, and now you're nearly 40. This is insane. And the absolute painful cringe that comes with that. Because your brain's sitting there going, I should be able to do this. Bloody hell. I'm not even talking to him, I'm just texting. This is insane. Oh, so if guys ever feel that way, bearing in mind girls still feel the same way. We do the exact same shit, dude. And it's magnified as well because we can't make the first move because we don't want to be coming across as a slut, right? So we're waiting for these guys to text us first, and that's how you miss out, I think. Some people are more empowered. Some people have the social skills and the gift of the gab to talk their way into situations like relationships. I don't. My ex-boyfriend I made a bookmark for. That's how I showed my affection. I embroidered a bookmark. How do you show your affection? I have no words. I crafted you this thing, though. It took me a while. I thought you liked avocados, so I made you an embroidered bookmark with an avocado. Please love me, I'm pathetic. And I've been crafting my entire life, so it took all my skills. Yeah, I'm sad. I've always been twiddling with my fingers. That's part of the anxiety as well, to constantly be fiddling with something. My brother is constantly doing his Warhammer figures, or he's on his computer whenever he gets some downtime, but he's always chewing. He's got it too. He's always chewing pen lids and shit like that. And you can tell he's got an oral fixation like me, but he probably doesn't, medicate it in the same way, shall we say. My ex-boyfriend knows what I mean. But, I have an oral fixation at the moment because I don't have a boyfriend. I'm chewing a shitload of gum. And I fuck around with my headphones cable. I've got an iPod, like an old school iPod thing. My earphones, I sit there twiddling. Just because I fiddle, I have to keep my hands moving. I don't know what that is. It's like, it feels itchy on the inside to not do it, and I can't keep my hands still. Apparently that's part of stimming as well. You're trying to de-stress, so your hand's always moving, and I've also got the hyperfixation of autism where I sit there and I can just sit there for hours just fucking around with my hands doing stuff, like making stuff. I used to make a shitload of jewelry, and then I went into like patchwork quilting and sewing and knitting and crocheting and making dresses and beading and necklaces and painting, and it's always fiddling with something. I'm always doing some tinkering, always making something. And I'll just sit there for hours, and I'm in bliss as long as I've got a coffee and some music in the background or some noise in the background. I'm sitting there for hours, just get lost in it. I love doing that. Apparently that's some kind of escapism associated with generalized social anxiety. So when people are at home and they're just sitting there painting their figures, or they're playing around on their computer, they're trying to de-stress. It's like when monkeys sit there and eat each other's fleas, grooming or whatever it is. It's a social thing where you're just overstimulated and you're trying to come down again. Worse for people with autism because it's a sensory thing as well. Like at the end of the day, when I love my kids, but they are very grabby. They love to hang on me, touch me, play with my jewelry, stuff like that. And you can probably hear my jewelry tinkling because I'm covered in it like Mr. T, because I do hang around with a lot of autistic kids as well. And they'll sit there and play with the jewelry while they're talking to me. I know their eyes aren't on me. Not that you should force that, actually. It's very uncomfortable to force children to look at you while they're talking to you. It's horrible. It's very confrontational for us and them. I'm an autistic teacher teaching autistic kids, you know. Please don't force the eye contact. It's horrible feeling on the inside for them and us. Because I know it's a social trait that some people are okay with, but it's not a comfortable one for anyone, really. It's very confrontational. It's a primal instinct because you're like glaring at someone in the eyes and it's a threat, isn't it? So just let them look away. So they'll play with my jewelry while they're talking to me. I know they're listening because they respond. So they'll be looking at, you know, like charm bracelets and shit. But it's good because it's stimming for them. Obviously, the talking to a grown-up is very confrontational and fucks with their anxiety, just in general, because you've got that sort of power struggle. But at the same time, if you know they're listening, it's good for them that they've got a slight distraction, even if it's just fucking around with your jewelry. And it can be, you know, it's sorry, I'm just pulling into work. It can be relaxing for them. They don't have to worry about, you know, direct eye contact and interaction. It's horrible. People who have social skills that can just do that, good for you. But to me, it's painful as shit. It's like eye contact. Like, for example, restaurants. Like, if you go on a date at a restaurant and you're sitting face to face, that is one of the worst fucking experiences for me. I hate doing it. It's so confrontational. You're staring at each other. It's already an awkward event. You're meeting with someone who you don't really know that well. You haven't lived with. You haven't, like, if it's a I would say a date like off Tinder or something. I don't know. I don't do Tinder, but anyway, I can't imagine how uncomfortable that would feel. And then you're facing each other on a table, which is usually small, and forcing yourself into social interaction verbally. I can't do. You know, I just not got it. You know, hoping that this person doesn't pick up that you're insane. But please don't notice that I have nothing in my brain working right now. It's just horrible. It's cringy. I wish you could skip to the bit where you just, you know, Netflix and chill, but it's like, I don't understand this part where we have to formalize everything. I know that it might be like a buffer. Maybe it's some kind of, you know, extreme part of the dating where you have to put them through these horrible, exhausting scenarios just to check if they're on the level, right? And if they fail the sitting in a restaurant staring at each other kind of thing, then you know that they're mentally unhinged. It's like, well, you didn't do that one. I guess you're not coming to know where I live. But it's exhausting. It's internal screaming. I mean, with the old group I used to try and hang around with, we used to sit in pubs. That's an entirely alien concept to me. I don't sit in pubs. I don't drink. I didn't drink before I dated my ex-boyfriend. And then I was, you know, interacting with people I didn't know about stuff I don't feel comfortable doing anyway. So when I found someone in that group who had a similar interest to me, I wanted to interact with that person because I knew that information. I could talk about that information as one of my interests. And as an autistic person, we don't just have interests, we have obsessions. So we want to talk about it at length. And the topic, for example, spirituality, that's one of my interests at this moment. My ex-boyfriend didn't support that at all. He hated it and he'd give me shit every chance he got. But I found someone else who wanted to talk about it. So I'm like, cool, I can finally talk to someone. And it's in circumstances which are uncomfortable, but I've got this one thread I can talk to someone about. And I want to go there, but, you know, I couldn't because, you know, I have a strong feeling they were putting on a front of like a tough guy front or whatever. And I'm sitting there going, this isn't helpful. How are we supposed to talk about this thing? And it just sort of made the whole circumstance even more uncomfortable. So even like going out in a group is just fucking uncomfortable. I don't have the skills to adapt in that yet, but I've heard that you can adapt to it quite quickly if you're exposed to it more. But I don't want to. That sounds horrible. Like, I don't want to. It hurts. But I don't know. I just don't see any value in that kind of circumstance. You know, some people need to network. It's like, I don't need to network. All my needs are being met. It's like, just by staying away. I found that my life went downhill when I started associating with those people. because I was drinking and my health went down, and I was just getting stressed out, and all these things were happening in the background with my ex-boyfriend, and it was just causing more mental damage than it was fixing anything. So it was making my anxiety worse, it was making my PTSD worse. The only sort of release I had from that was when I would leave the pub. I would leave him at the pub and I'd go to the gym. Because the gym I understood and I knew what I needed to do. There was no one sitting there, expecting me to do anything more or less than what I was going to do. And it's always, self-directed, so it wasn't really a problem. I didn't have to interact with anyone. In fact, I actively avoid people at the gym. So I had some recluse there. But generally, I'm not good with people, man. I'm not good with people. And it sucks because I'm surrounded by them. And it's annoying as well because I got that sort of perfectionist streak. It's like I want to get it right. And I know where that comes from. That comes from my mum, beating us until we get it right. So I know I'm missing out on something by not being able to overcome the generalized anxiety. But at the same time, I'm like, do I need to do this? Everything I do when I interact with other people usually ends up, balls deep and fucked upville. If I'd have stayed with that group anymore, I would have developed... First of all, I would have lost all my money because all they do is spend their money on piss and takeaway and shit like that, or drugs. I might have developed some kind of extra horrible habits which are just counterintuitive to my health and sanity. And honestly, if I'd stayed with that group, my life would have gone down the toilet, I think. I could predict that happening because I'm looking at the movement of them across the time that I knew them, and I'm sitting there going, this isn't going to get better, this is just getting worse. So I'm glad I left that group when I did. And I did it to the group that came before them as well, which was also one of my ex-boyfriend's groups. So there's something about the groups he chooses that just aren't great, that just don't go anywhere, or they dissipate, but they don't help anything. So I don't know if that's just him. So distancing myself from him was actually a godsend as well, because then I just dropped all the shit that he brought with him and the baggage, and I didn't have to deal with it because it's not my business. And what they say is like, not my circus, not my monkeys. So I don't know. So I would assume, given that it's 3 minutes till I have to be in my classroom, the best thing you can do is maybe expose yourself to certain circumstances. I am doing myself exposure therapy. So I go to the gym for my PTS. I elevate and de-elevate, I escalate and de-escalate my, my physical symptoms. So if you've listened to my PTS podcast, it describes where I got it from, what my symptoms are, how I work with them to try and get through the day. It's way back at the start, I'm afraid. Sorry, you're gonna have to go hunt for it. But it also helps with the general anxiety. Like I've got the hypervigilance because I got trauma, and I'm paranoid. I'm not paranoid, but I'm aware that where everyone is in the gym, and I try to desensitize that by just ignoring. And it's a planned ignore. And that is a tactic you can use to, try to bring down your anxiety a bit, because you walk to that gym, you're wearing yoga pants, you are aware of how many men there are, you know where they are, you know what they're looking at, what's going on in that gym before you've even set foot in the door. You're looking through the window to check where everyone is and what they're doing. And it's not checking out guys, it's checking out where the threat is. Yeah, I've had a fucked up background. It's like I don't feel comfortable around people in general. But you try to overcome it. You don't just sit with it and say, I'm just going to ignore everyone. I don't want to associate with anyone. I don't want to interact with society at all. Because you still have to exist in it. And it's just one of those things we've got to get over. Even if you've got like a natural predisposition to it. Like my trauma background up until 20 led me into the marriage where I had anxious attachment with a narcissist, basically. I didn't want to leave him because I was afraid that I was nothing. I had nothing, It's a horrible double-edged sword. If you stay, you're screwed. If you leave, you're screwed. It was a weird experience. In the end, it made me a better person because I just didn't have the net behind me saying you can always go back, because as soon as he left, he fucking ghosted. And I'm like, you bastard. Yeah, he was happy, I expect, getting his dick wet with someone else. So I'm assuming he got busy pretty quickly. But, you have to adapt, which is why I like adapting, because it strengthens the muscles, really, doesn't it? You're not sure of your wings, but if you're pushed into it, sink or swim, you'll figure out a way. chances are you'll figure out a way because there's no other option. Right, anyway, I'm going to have to go there. I've done my podcast with a day. I've got to go into work now. I've got 2 of my girls sitting there, year 6 girls staring at me. So they're nice girls. One of them's got autism, I know that. She's just quiet. Anyway, all right, I hope you guys have a fantastic Monday. I'm going to try and do another one on the way home if I'm not exhausted. I've also got 2 planned for Thursday, so I'm trying to do 4 this week. It's a goal, but I don't know if I'll achieve it. Okay, so have a fantastic Monday. I hope you don't have any real problems with your anxiety. If you do, I hope you find ways that make you feel better and at ease with people or situations or circumstances. It's not life-threatening, remember that. And you can and will adapt, okay? I want you to take it easy and have a good one.